Hello, good evening. I'm Yuvraj back with another video for specifically teaching you GS paper 2 part 1 polity, and we're going to deal with constituent assembly debates specifically, and how was the constituent assembly formulated, what were the basics, what were the empirics, and everything related to constituent assembly in this brief video. Let us first start with knowing the fact that India became a proper colonial nation with the Act of 1858, with which the Queen's sovereignty was established. Proclamation of Queen was established over the Indian state, the Indian subcontinent, rather to be mentioned specifically. But what happened after that? There were several other reforms and acts like Montague Chelmsford reforms, and then Government of India Act 1935. But we are since focusing on Constituent Assembly in this video for the main GS paper 2. So we'll start with the basics of what happened after the act of in 1947, which is known as the changes, or which is known as the Act of Independence of India as 1947. So after the Act of 1947, we all know that India became it's pretty much known that on 15th August, the Twist with Destiny speech is pretty much clear to and must be known to everybody. But I want to emphasize over here that, to be very simply, it was the basis that the formation of Constituent Assembly was established, right? 1947 के act के बाद India attained the dominion status, right? And the Governor General and the provincial governors are the Constituent Assembly heads now, right? So that India attained a dominion status, right? The Governor Generals and the provincial governors act as the constituent heads now, right? So, and the formation of the Constituent Assembly was established. That was the basic of the changes which happened after the India Independence Act of 1947. Now, coming to the Constituent Assembly, right, and the Constitution of 1950. What happened? What were the basic debates of the Constituent Assembly? Constituent Assembly, how are the members elected? This is very important to understand, to mention in your paper. The empirics impressed the examiner. You mentioned that there were 299 members, right? There were earlier 389 members, which was reduced to 299 members. Then the words which were spoken by this is by the six specific members that will be covered within this video. Let's look at the basic things which we are going to discuss in this video, considering the time constraints specifically. So the Constituent Assembly formation basically started by choosing the members which would represent themselves as the Constituent Assembly members. They were elected by a single transferable vote from the provinces, right? So Constituent Assembly formation is basically a very thought-provoking thing, because very significant eminent personalities were chosen, like people like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was chosen specifically with the idea, with the motive that the intellect, the objective intellect, which again the UPSC requires, right? So the written examination in UP, you cannot be theoretical about polity, right? So that objectivity for framing such a huge draft for the constitution of the draft, that is constitution, and so several committees were formulated. We will be focusing on drafting committee, to be specific over here. But Constituent Assembly ka jo formation tha, that was initiated by selecting the members of the Constituent Assembly, which were selected from various provinces of the Indian nation, and these members were selected by a single transferable vote, right? Now moving forward, what was like the first day of the Indian Constituent Assembly? Now, Indian Constituent Assembly for the first time met on 9th December 1946, right? Which is today known as the Central Hall of the Parliament, was the Constitution Hall back then, of our parliament, which is situated in New Delhi. All right, so the Indian Parliament ka jo aaj ke time mein, which is the Central Hall of the Parliament, right, Parliament House, that was specifically known as the Constitution Hall, because the Constituent Assembly members for the first time met in that hall on 9 December 1946. And to be very specific, there were 9 women present, right? 9 female members, 9 women were present. So it's a very justified thing that there was very unbiased kind of constituent assembly formation. Everybody was given a chance irrespective of gender, caste, creed, whatsoever, right? So now coming to some basic empirics. What are empirics? Like, empirics is something which is analytical data, right? You can mention it, which gives a very significant impression on the examiner that that the student has gone into the depths, right? You can mention it, underline it, but it's very important for you to understand it as well, because that this will give you an awakening that how the constituent assembly formulated, how it progressed, how it worked, right? So let's look at the basic empirics, right? So constituent assembly took around 2 years and 11 months, right, to complete the historic task for framing of the Indian constitution, right? Since the inception, it held 11 sessions, I repeat, since its inception, यानी कि जब से शुरू हुआ था constituent assembly का debate, the constituent assembly was formulated. So it held 11 sessions, right, in total of 165 days, right? 11 session in total of 165 days, and 114 days were spent on consideration of the draft of the constitution. Now, there might be a confusion, right? 165 days for in the 11 sessions, and 114 days to spend on the draft of the constitution. Now, the ironical point over here is this, that the 11 sessions which were held were, the total sessions were 165, and out of 165 sessions, when the draft was considered to be prepared, right? जैसे हमने खाना बनाया, we chopped the vegetables, right? तड़का prepare कर लिया, we make the recipes, put the masala and everything. Now when the dish is burning, the dish is the dish is getting ready, right? So it's like getting cooked, right? Raw material is getting cooked, it's getting absorbed into the gravy, right? The curry. So that was the drafting period, right? That drafting period took 114 days, 114 days in specific for the formation of for the consideration for the draft draft of the constitution. Now moving forward to the membership of the Constituent Assembly. So in the beginning, when the Constituent Assembly was established, the idea of the Constituent Assembly was there. So there were 389 members, right? There were 389 elected members of the Constituent Assembly. But since the partition of India took place, and there were two nations, right? It's a separate theory. The two nation theories is a very interesting thing which you should read. So with the two nation theory, this entire thing took place. The partition of India took place, and this happened due to the Mountbatten Plan, and a new state, which is Pakistan, was created. Thus, some of the representatives which were part of the Constituent Assembly moved to the newly created state, that was Pakistan, and India was left with only 299, that is 299 members only in the Constituent Assembly after the partition. Moving a bit forward, so now comes a very significant thing, which is that on 13 December 1946, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru moved a resolution which is known as the Objective Resolution. So the main purpose of the Objective Resolution was this, that the independent sovereign nation of the India will now be recognized as the Union of States. This is a very interesting part. The Article 1, India shall be known as Union of States. Now this Article 1, which is there in the present constitution, this was initiated by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, the very foremost prime minister of the free nation India. And this resolution was moved on 13 December 1946. It's known as Objective Resolution. So one primary thing is that the India shall be known as Union of States. The sovereign India shall be known as Union of States. This is one perspective which was laid in the Objective Resolution. The second one, the idea of fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy were also framed. This was also laid down in the Objective Resolution. Moving a bit forward, also one more important thing, in Objective Resolution, the powers and the functions of the state, union, etc. were also defined. This is a separate thing. Objective Resolution as a whole, you have to we'll study. Obviously we'll study. Moving forward to the major committee which was responsible, as I specified in the previous in the last 2 minutes, back 2 minutes, that 114 specific days were given to for the drafting of the constitution, drafting of the constitution, I mean for the draft which was ready to get it finalized, they were spending 114 days. So now this task was given to the drafting committee. This drafting committee was headed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, right? So on 29 August 1947, very sincerely note this thing, on 29th August 1947, the Constituent Assembly set up a drafting committee, right? Again, the chairmanship, as I just mentioned, was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. The task of drafting committee was to draft the constitution. Again, it's very much predictable, right? So now coming to again a very beautiful empiric over here. While deliberating upon the draft of the constitution, the assembly moved and discussed and disposed of as many as 2473 amendments out of total of 7635 tabled. Now what is this thing? I mean, I repeat, 2473 amendments, right, were disposed of out of 7635 tabled. Now since there were 299 constituent assembly members, so all of them would have contributed, and that's pretty much obvious. Many aspirants apply every year for UPSC. Some clear pre, some clear main, some of you has become lucky with your hard work pays and you finalize to the end of the interview and you finalize yourself as a bureaucrat. So again, we've all put in effort. So similarly, this this Constituent Assembly members had put in a lot of ideas, a lot of discussions were held, and there were several points which were statutes points which were laid down, and the number of those points were 7635 which were tabled, यानी कि रखे गए थे, प्रस्तुत किए गए थे, प्रस्ताव रखे गए थे, right? The idea is that के प्रस्ताव रखे गए, out of that those total were 7635, and out of this 7635, 2473 were amended, disposed of, खत्म भी किए गए, amend भी किए गए, right? So this is the basic of the drafting committee. Moving a bit forward, a very simple thing, 14% of the clause by clause discussion was on fundamental rights. We are discussing Constituent Assembly debates now. It's a very interesting thing that 14% डिबेट सिर्फ फंडामेंटल राइट्स के ऊपर की गई थी. और एक बहुत चौंकाने वाली बात यह कि 6 मेंबर्स ने करीबन डिबेट्स के अंदर 1 लाख से ज़्यादा शब्दों का उपयोग किया था. 6 मेंबर्स स्पोक मोर देन 1 लाख वर्ड्स, and members of provinces contributed to 85% of assembly debates. And members of provinces, Northwestern Frontier Province, right? So this kind of provinces contribute. These members from these provinces contributed to major debates in the Constituent Assembly, leading to the number, the empiric of 85%. Can you imagine? Also, very specifically, the women members contributed to 2% of the constitution discussion, Constituent Assembly discussion. Entirely, there were 9 women members, and out of 9, all of the 9 women members, 2% debates were coming in the entire Constituent Assembly. So, women was empowered. The empowerment of the women was entirely visible in this Constituent Assembly debates. Also in the formation of Constitution, and today also in the contemporary India, you can always visualize the women empowerment taking place. Right, moving forward. So now, major debates of the Constitution Assembly. So now, major debates of the Constituent Assembly focused on 3 specific things. Number one is the issue of the minority. Second is the language. Third is the reconciliation of the Hindu character of the Indian nation. Now, how should we categorize them? Number 1 is the minority issue, right? Number 2 is the religious issue. Number 3 is the language issue, right? So now let's just look at these 3 were the major debates, and also we are discussing since debates, so we are focusing on the 3 debates. So focusing on Constituent Assembly debates. So let's just keep it focused, so that do not read as much that you cannot get it into your brains, and then you cannot put it into on the examination sheet. Keep that much in your brain that it gets digested, and you can easily bring it out when it's needed, right? So moving forward, So secularism and communalism, coming to the first debate. So it was started by Ananthasan Iyengar, right? So Ananthasan Iyengar ने start किया था communalism and secularism का debate. There was a major statement mentioned by it in which he said no communal organization which is its constitution or by exercise of discretionary powers as such. There's a entire statement which he gave, should I'll read the basic thing. I have it over here. Should okay, so he says that no communal organization which by its constitution or by the exercise of discretionary power vested in any of its offices or organs admits to or excludes from its membership persons on the grounds of religion, race or caste, right, should be permitted to engage in any activity other than essential for the bona fide religious, cultural, social and educational needs of the community. Now, what is the crux of the statement? He is leading towards that no one should be discriminated specifically. I'll read the last line again. Other than those essential for the bona fide religious, cultural, social and educational needs of the community. Now, it's leading to a very specific thing, which is saying that there shall be no discrimination whatsoever be on the basis of religion, right, until and unless a person is not leading towards a specific religious community debate. He or she should be making part of the any policy or whatsoever of the Indian government's task, right? So now what was the outcome of this debate? ऐसा डिबेट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन असेंबली में कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली की डिबेट्स में रखा गया, पर इसका सिला क्या निकला, राइट? सो नाउ one of the rights guaranteed by the Indian Constitution is the right to freedom of religion. As a secular nation, every citizen of the Indian nation has the right to freedom to follow any religion, right? So now this right is been very specifically given as fundamental right, which is mentioned in Article 25, 26, 27 and 28 of the Indian Constitution. Number one debate complete. It was about secularism and communalism, and the outcome of the debate was that the right to religion as a fundamental right has been given to us. Broadly, it is covered under Article number 25, 26, 27 and 28. Moving forward, the second debate was on the basis of language. It was started by Yuvraj Shastri in 1949. Yuvraj Shastri said that English is not the language of this of this land. The language of this land is Hindi. And so, what was the outcome of the debate on the language? The outcome of the debate on the language is that the India is having no national language. We have official language, right? Hindi or English can be used alternatively by its will at the central level, right? So there is an official language, there is no national language. More specifically, I can explain you that Article number 343, Clause 1 of the Constitution states that the official language of the Union Government shall be Hindi in Devanagari script, unless Parliament decides otherwise. The use of the English as the official language was ceased to 15 years and 15 साल के लिए इंग्लिश का इस्तेमाल बैन कर दिया गया था और इंग्लिश का इस्तेमाल वापस शुरू किया गया 1965 में. दैट वाज ऑन 26 जनवरी 1965 दैट द लैंग्वेज नोन एज द इंग्लिश वाज आल्सो गिवन एज official status, right? Until then it was just Devanagari, it was just Hindi in Devanagari script, right? Article number 343 clause 1, right? So moving forward, now comes the debate, very major debates on religious minorities. Like, guys, do not confuse it with secularism debate and a religious minorities debate. We are talking of minority over here. We're not talking of any discrimination. We're talking of religious minority. Now, since the nation was partitioned, majority of the population in India even now is Hindus, right? According to the religious data, and making it the part and parcel of the religious minority forms basically the Christian and the Muslims or other religious minorities. So now the minorities should be given a status, right? So what was the outcome of this thing? Again, right now the state shall not, in granting aid to educational institutes, discriminate any educational institution on the ground of its that it is under management of a minority, whether based on religion or language. Now point over here is this, that excuse me, the point over here is that the outcome or the debate of the religious minorities was that religious minorities were given institutional status, right? So we do not we have given protection of the interest of the minorities, right, and confers in citizens in any part of India having a distinct language, script, culture, whatsoever. They are given a special privilege, their rights, their practices have been the customs of the religious minorities are, say, protected. The interest is protected, let's take the example of Muslims going for a namaz, right? So it's like they can go for, we celebrate Christmas also, we celebrate Eid ul Fitr also, we celebrate Diwali also. Diwali, if compared with Eid ul Fitr, if compared with Christmas, is equally important in the nation, in the vision of the Indian government, right, Indian state. So that's how the three major debates of the Constituent Assembly were framed. Thank you for today. Keep learning. All the best.